Welcome. Welcome to Dr. Bird's Health Politics. I'm Rick Kates. I'm not actually on the campus, but I'm broadcasting to you from Beaufort, South Carolina. I'm trying a different approach, a different method of delivery. I appreciate Dr. Bird letting me participate in class in a distance environment. So let's get started. The article I have is a very long article. It's entitled, "A Female Malady," with a question mark. Women at the South Carolina Lunatic Asylum from the year 1828 to the year 1925 by Peter McCandless. I want you to think about the title a little bit. A female malady. Do they mean a female disorder or disease or an undesirable condition at the asylum? I think that's what McCandless is trying to uncover in this article. I actually remember Dr. McCandless at the College of Charleston. He's also well known for a book entitled Slavery, Disease, Suffering in the Southern Lowcountry. I bet Dr. Bird knows Dr. McCandless. McCandless started at the College of Knowledge back in 1974 and worked up to the year 2008. And let me go back in history a little bit, because I think that's important. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of mental health in South Carolina, and I got that from the South Carolina Department of Mental Health's website. I'm also going to go back in time and talk to one of the mentally ill patients at the facility and see how he thought women were treated at the mental institute. Back in 1821, two gentlemen were the catalysts that saw a need for indigent mental ill patients. These lawmakers were Colonel Farrell and Major William Crafts. So, what's important to take away from this article in terms of our class, in terms of health politics? I think is that these two gentlemen set the precedence in mental health, especially in South Carolina, in terms that they felt that it should be paid locally at the public's expense. So in 1821, South Carolina State Legislature passed a statute approving $30,000 to spend on a building to build the South Carolina Asylum and School for the Deaf and Dumb. At that particular time, in 1821, $30,000 was a lot of money to be spent. I do think the back of the building is pretty interesting, and it does conjure up a lot of different images. Let's go inside and talk to one of the patients. There's an older guy over here. Maybe I can get him to talk to me. Hey, Jimmy, can you tell me about the women at the asylum? Jimmy? Charlotte McGee. Mary Austin. Mm-hmm. Got a little out of him. I'll tell you a little bit about it. That was interesting. He told me about Charlotte McGee, and she was admitted in 1835 at her own request, and that she would flitter around, say she was working, knitting. She had severe headaches and stomach disorders, but the doctor said, "Oh, the good lady, I believe she tends to feel like she's worse than she really is." Mary Austin was committed to the asylum. She came from a very wealthy family, and they overindulged her. They gave her a private nurse, gave her a special diet, all kinds of attention, and she ranted and raved how great the asylum's doctors were and how they were successful in alleviating a vaginal disorder. At that time, psychiatrists attributed mental illness for women to everything from childbirth to menopause. Then there was Elizabeth Stewart. She came in with all kinds of sores and bruises, and that they were able to fix her up and give her a tonic, and that she was able to go back and do her domestic duties like sewing and cleaning and cooking and doing the laundry. So later on in the article comes along a lady named Elaine Showalter. And she was a crusader at that time for women. And she referred to this asylum as a male-dominated reformatory. And she argued that the treatment of women's madness reflected the culture at that time and the social norm, that they treated women as that their duties were domestic, and everything was related to some type of female problem. And she said that it was in the 1950s, she called this madness a female malady. And that's where I think Dr. McCandless came up with his title for the article. The article continues on. Well, let me add this one other point. Let me step out of the way here. There is, if you look at the table that he used for his data, he shows that there was a big spike from 1850 to 1860. And you can see that there was a lot more women that were admitted into the asylum at that time, which kind of ties back to what Elaine was saying. So, as I said, it's a long article, but it covers the changes that happened during the Civil War. It also showed how it catered to the white patients, and then they started receiving black patients in 1849, and that continued into the 1890s, still dealing with the disparity between the two races. And that's the end of the article. Thank you. In closing, I tried something new, something other than your typical PowerPoint presentation, and obviously it was kind of an odd article, and it was the the typical Old South. But I also think I gave you a little bit about the history of mental health in South Carolina. Have a good evening.